first off, we have a navigation, and this is a very simple navigation. It's got 3 links, and we're going to simplify our demonstration even further by just drawing a box around it. So this is like the container of the navigation, and we're just going to represent the links with a blue box. These links can be any size. It's 40 pixels, for example, but they could be like any size, and each link could be of a different size. So you can have like a very long link and a very short link, etc., etc. What we're going to be looking at is the space between each link, and we want this space to always be the same, no matter how big the links are. And if we take a look at the bounding box, and we make the nav bigger, so we get a bigger screen, for example, we want more space between the links, but we don't want the links to get bigger, and even bigger. But then, if the container becomes even bigger than this, we want to keep the nav items on the left, which is interesting, because we can't do this with regular Flexbox or any technique that I know of, straight out of the box. And what we also want is, when we make it shorter again, we want this to be the min width. So if the container becomes smaller, it's not going to collapse onto itself. And yeah, so no, not in this case. So the idea here is it's going to push all the content to the right. So it's not going to like become link to link, basically. So I made like because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to like coin new terms. So limited space shift, just a bullshit term. But the idea here is this. So we have padding, this should be padding left, for example, or padding right or something, and then a min-max function, or a between function, if you will, only with 2 values, like minimum value and maximum value. And it will never go beyond these 2 values. But this does not exist, and probably will never exist, but it's a fun food for thought. So the minimum value is just like this, and it goes to the maximum value and never exceeds those 2 values. Now, how do we implement this? It's quite simple, actually. We take our nav from before and we define it as just links, and then we apply some styles for it. We just have display flex and align it to the left. So that's our basic styles. Now, if we had just padding left, 15 pixels, it would behave almost correctly. Now we're going to add span elements between the links, and we're going to make those fill the rest of the space. So these fill elements have a flex grow of 0, a flex spaces of our maximum value, and a flex shrink of 1, but it never goes below 15 pixels. So min width of 15. So if you look at our min-max function, it will correspond like this. Flex spaces is our max value, and min width is our min value. I have a demo. I'm going to show all the demos at the end, if that's okay with everyone. Because I have another thing I want to talk about. So, yeah. Any questions before I go further?
Interesting solution.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
It's fun. It works really well with when you have multiple dynamic elements then it works really well, because then everything just kind of flows until it can't. It's really nice. So this one is a common bug, not a common bug, a common frustration. Imagine you have a div on the page and you have an ID on it, and you want to scroll to that ID on page load, or when you click a link or something. And the problem is, when you click it, you end up like with the div at the top of the screen, but your header is going to block it, because you probably have like a fixed header. So it's like behind the header now. And this top line of our div is at the top of the screen, which is annoying. We want this, right? We want to have the div element below the header, but we don't want to do this, hard math to figure this out every time. Yeah, so this is the offset that we want to have for our div element, or yeah. So we have this div here, and we are going to add a before, like a pseudo class to it, and just assign it to an empty string. And that's our pink box in the left there. We're going to have a display block, so it fills the width of our element. We're going to give it the height of our header, and this height can be, you can do this dynamically with JavaScript or something. We're going to pull it up with margin top, the same amount, and make it invisible. So you can't click it, you can't see it. But the top of our div is now this line. So when you scroll, the header is going to be above our div, which is really nice, and this works really well. It's super simple. And I also have a demo for it. Can look at it after. No.
Can you repeat the question?
Do I have a fancy name for it? I do not. Pseudo offset. Yeah. One more demo, and then, or one more technique, and then we're going to go and look at demos if we have time. This is a problem we had on a real project. So you see the image here, it stretches to the right side of the screen, but it's also at a very specific point within our page, like within our container. So this image. So we have a container, which is like just the max width of the page, basically. But this is an area that we don't really know, because it's we're basically using margin auto on the blue box there. So this was very slow. Anyways, we have a container, and the cool thing with just divs in general and CSS is that the width applies with a percentage value on a width applies to the parent. So we can do like width 50% means that the pink box is 50% of the blue box. It's parent, basically. 100% as well. And now we take a look at the viewport, which is the browser, like the browser view. There we have similar units, viewport width, and viewport width here is 50% of the entire screen, and 100% or 100 viewport width is going to fill the screen. And we can do something interesting with calc, which is supported in like everything, basically. So our problem again, we want to place this image correctly within our container, but also bleed to the right side of the screen, sorry, no matter how big the screen is. I'm going to simplify this just by using a blue box again and a pink, like this is the container that we have. When we start off with a div with some height, it's just going to fill the width of the parent. By default, it's like width auto or something. Now we're going to set, so the calc there is unnecessary. I forgot to delete it. Just ignore that. It's just width 50 viewport widths. And here is the magic. We're going to do a margin right. And so we're missing one line here. It's supposed to be float right as well. That could be, we could do this with position absolute as well. Would work just the same. So 50% minus 50 viewport widths is this space right there. And that's cool because we know the half point of the screen is 50 viewport widths, and we subtract from that 50%, and then we flip it around to get this pink area. That's why I have it 50% minus 50 viewport widths. And that gives us a box that reaches the middle of the screen and also reaches the edge of the screen. But I want to move it to here, to 30% or 100 pixels or whatever to the left of our midpoint. So 33%. To do that, I simply give the width an extra half of that because we're working with half the container. And that moves the div to the left. So now it's like it's floated to the right, but we're pulling it more to the right with the margin right calc function. That's going to be a negative value. And then we have the width is saying half of the screen plus this extra thing that takes to get from the middle towards 33%. And yeah, that's it. And now we have demos, if you want.
I have a question.
Yep.
How did you make these awesome slides?
So I went to this great talk by my colleague a few weeks back, and he showed me how to make these awesome slides using Keynote and Magic Move. And if you want to see that, there's a link to it in the description.
How much longer do you think you would be building the slides with slides.com? Okay, I'm out.
I'm not going to repeat that question. Okay.
It would be nice to have the demos in line in the slides.
Yeah.
Not having to do all the demos in the end.
No one can hear you, I hear.
I
You
was
don't have a
gonna-
microphone.
I was going to do the demos after each thing, but the thing is I am really positioned awkwardly, and I'm not even sure I can do this. So let's try. Our first demo works really well. I could have shown you like a more advanced thing with more elements, but I didn't really have time to do it. I also figured this could be useful for things like a carousel component that needs to be a certain width with certain space between it. But yeah. This is my second demo. IP link offset thing.
Is there any reason why you have the width? No, that you need to have it like full width
What?
instead of just having it on 1 pixel.
What do you mean?
The pseudo element. Do you need the pseudo element to actually take space and do the pointer event none instead of just having it positioned and take no space? Or can you?
Good question.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is, do I need to have width on this pseudo element, or can it just be 0 width and not use the visibility hidden tricks? Yeah. The thing is, it needs to be in the flow because it's actually like pulling the content down. I don't know.
It's actually taking space.
Yeah.
It is taking the 80 pixels.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
there's a cool thing here.
a hack I've used like way back in the past was
Yeah.
just to use like minus margin and then padding to go back down.
Yeah. The trick is, I said, is to use minus margin and padding to offset that. I've used that before too. It's very common. The thing is, you have to do that on everything, and you have to like, now you have extra padding on an element that doesn't require padding.
But another thing I think I've seen before is to use like the A element, like A with name on it instead of
Yeah.
an ID, and then position the A just above
Yeah.
the element.
Yeah, that's another
That might
solution.
be a more,
Yeah.
I think that might be a better, cleaner like.
But then you have another element in the DOM. So I said,
It's an anchor. It's like
yeah,
purpose.
yeah,
Instead, and then you don't have an ID.
yeah. So I suggest using a anchor tag and just have a position relative top minus 80 on that. That would basically do the same thing.
Interesting to try it out.
Yeah. I have one Easter egg here, which is fun. I did not mean to do that. Sorry. Ugh, I can't do this. Ugh. We're gonna cut this out of the video, by the way. Ugh. So ignore the keyboard. If you use a new scroll into view, you get animation, which is pretty cool, without any offsets. And yeah, and then, oh, sorry, this one, yeah, it's basically a demo that Stanford Design School is. Yeah, that's it.
What happens if you remove the float?
It's going to be on the left side. But if you want it to be on the left side, it's the same thing, just do margin left instead. Yeah. I could do it without it, yeah, because I know the width of the container and the width of the element, and I could just margin it more to the right. But yeah, there's also a funny side effect here that I'm using margin top on the blue element to position it in the middle of the screen. It's basically view margin top like 30 viewport height or something, and then the height of the div is, you know, the difference of that and 50. If I have a float, it's gonna allow me to push it down. If I don't have a float, it's gonna collapse and the margin is gonna push the entire container down. So floats for the win.
I love floats.
I love floats too. Yeah. Anyways, yeah, any cues.
Cool.